Hi, this is Tracy Taylor with the Wasatch Taxpayers Association. We're doing Heber City election interviews. And if you'd like more information on the Wasatch Taxpayers Association, you can go to wasatchtaxpayersassociation.com, and there'll be videos of all these candidates up there and more information for you. So today we have Kelleen Potter. She's running for mayor again. You've been the mayor for the last 4 years. And tell us why you've decided to run again.
Okay, happy to do that. Thanks for the opportunity. I really appreciate what you do to get information out, because there's a lot of people, everyone knows who's running for president, but really what happens in your neighborhood and on your city government is what affects people. So thank you for the effort you're making. I have, like Tracy said, I've been the mayor for 4 years now, and when I ran for mayor, I had been on the council for 1 term, and my impression of being on the city council was I felt like we were just getting hit really hard by all of this growth and development, and it felt like we were reactive. We weren't planning. We didn't have an updated general plan. We have money, we got to spend it in the park. What do you guys want? Bathrooms. And we needed to do more planning. And so that's one of the things that has been most important to me that I have pushed in the last 4 years is planning. So we've got a new general plan, we've done the cemetery plan, we've done the parks and trails plan. So we're really doing a lot of planning, trying to get ahead of what's coming at us. And one of the reasons I'm running again is because I feel like we have some good momentum. We have changed some key staff positions, particularly the city manager. I feel like I've had some opportunities recently to be asked at the state level to have a voice and be sitting at the table with legislators and people who are making decisions that are going to affect our city. And I think it's good for our city. I feel like I've been able to be effective, and I figured I want to try it for 1 more term.
Okay.
That's essentially what.
And tell us, do you have a job outside of being the mayor of Heber, or what are some of these boards you're on, or are you consulting, or just anything like that? What else are you doing besides mayor?
So I consult with Utah Ranked Choice Voting, and I have been helping. I used to be the director of elections for the state of Utah back in the Levitt administration. So they asked me if I would help the election officials with the implementation. So I've been helping them with candidate training, voter outreach, and then just the election administration part of running ranked choice voting. There are 23 cities that approved it, but now these cities that didn't have enough candidates were down to about 17. So that's what I do outside of this year. So we'll see what happens next year.
How much time does that take up for you in your week?
I spend a lot less time doing that than I do being mayor. Right now it's building up just to the election, and then after the election I'll be done with that portion of it. So right now I'm probably spending 10 to 15 hours a week doing that.
Okay. Well, let's get right to some of the big issues that we're dealing with, which I would say 90% of our citizens want to know about what's going on with the airport. And so, at this point, let's just start out really basic and ask you, are you for an expansion or not for an expansion? And I know that sounds like a yes or no question, but it's really intended to be, because I think a lot of people just want to know yes or no.
Okay. I will say, I think that's a false dichotomy, but I'll say no, I'm not for an expansion. But on the same hand, I will also say that what I have learned, what I understood to be moving to a C2 for our airport was, I thought that would mean we would have to get bigger. We'd take out a freeway. We would have to knock out some homes. But it's possible and probable that we can be a C2 airport with the same footprint that's existing. And it appears from everything I've learned that if we do not say we will make some of these improvements, that we will lose our funding as well as possibly be sued by the FAA. So looking at those things, I do think it's in our best interest financially and as a city to say, okay, here we're not willing to increase the footprint of our airport. We don't want more planes. We don't want to do anything that would create a need or a likelihood of getting more bigger airplanes here. We want to keep our community as quiet as possible. We want our air as clean as possible. But we also have to look at the contracts and documents that have been signed for the last 2 decades, 3 decades, 39 different contracts with the FAA saying, we will maintain this safe airport. We will not restrict planes from coming here. I don't think in those days people completely understood the potential of what we could be facing today. And they've made it very clear to us that if we do not do that, they will come after us legally, they will come after us with our finances, And it doesn't appear, from what attorneys tell me, from what FAA administrators tell me, that we have an option at this point than to say, okay, we'll look at some different layouts within the existing footprint. They've agreed to say they wouldn't try to force us to make a bigger airport in the existing footprint, but they are very adamant about creating more buffers on the side of the runway in case a plane goes off the side of the runway.
So it's safe now. We've not had any issues, you know, so safety in some citizens' mind is not a really valid argument because it's safe right now. So that's some of the issues that I still believe the citizens are adamant about, but also that they're, you know, we hear you're saying these things about what the FAA is going to expect. Those documents you signed for the last 20 years, they were to maintain a B2 airport. It did not say if you take this money the last 20 years, you have to become a C2. And so that's where, you know, quite honestly, we're, you know, citizens are hearing that it's a safety issue or we're not going to get bigger, but then why are we moving, you know, being forced in some people's minds to be a C2 airport? We don't want to be a C2 airport. The thing too is, just in the last week, as you know, a city council person came out saying it's her opinion that actually the city council won't be able to vote on this airport, that it'll be an FAA decision. And I'd like you to explain to the people maybe what has happened in the last year. Have you signed documents? Has the city done anything that has now taken that power out of the city council's hands on your watch, quite honestly?
No, there's not been anything that has happened. The one thing that has happened is we started this master plan update, and before that, we didn't have the data. We didn't know. Like, people thought, yeah, we were worried. That's why, I mean, even before my time on the council, I know everyone was worried. I know this had happened previously where there were meetings. I think there was a master plan, I don't know what year it was. It was more than 8 years ago. And the concern was, if we do a master plan update, we will be forced to go to a C2. And at the time, I remember talking to this, once we hired this airport attorney, I said, can they force us? And he said, no. And he said, you do not have the authority to condemn property outside of Heber city boundaries. And I thought, that's it. That's our linchpin. We don't have to condemn property. But I did not know, and nor were we ever told, that it was possible to be a C2 airport within the existing footprint, because all those plans before showed all this movement and, you know, showed moving the road potentially.
So that agreement of keeping the same footprint, have you gotten that in writing from the FAA at all? I mean, is that something they just told you could do? Or have you seen it in writing from, an email, a text message, anything coming from the FAA that we can do that?
No, but we have asked them and said, we really don't want to expand this footprint, and we want to be able to say that to the public, because we know that there's a lot of, like you said, people are afraid. People don't want a bigger airport. People don't want more planes coming here. And we have pushed back and said, we don't want more planes coming here. And they've said, we can't control the traffic, but there are things you have to do and things you don't have to do. And if we don't say, okay, we'll do some kind of adjustment in our airport layout plan to make more buffer on the side, that's when they say, you're violating the grant assurances that you've sold.
Well, and I just want to read this paragraph for the public too. Not, I mean, I'm sure you've read this paragraph, but I think it's chapter 8. 801 general, it says here, in some cases, the airport sponsor may decide that it is in the community's best interest for the airport not to continue to grow to accommodate forecast activity, or to accommodate forecast activity only up to a point. In these cases, the master plan should document this decision and indicate the probable consequences of the decision. Demand will be capped, the demand will go unmet, or the demand will be diverted to another airport, which we have Provo and Salt Lake within 40 minutes of us. So, you know, that paragraph in the master plan for a lot of citizens is our out of jail ticket, in the sense that we can say no.
And I was hoping the same thing, but the FAA claims that that refers only to commercial. So when we pushed back at them and said, what about this? What about this paragraph? And they said that doesn't apply to you, it applies to commercial airports, which we do we also told them we don't want to be commercial, and commercial is something you have to seek out, so
Yeah,
we would not
but
be
it has to say commercial in the documents. I mean, they can't say, they can interpret it any way they want, but the FAA, I'm sure, has document and wording that is very specific. And so for it not to say for a commercial operation in this paragraph or in the document anywhere, that's where some citizens are feeling like, look, they said we can say no. But let's move on, because there's so much more to talk about. I appreciate you giving us the latest information on that. The other thing I wanted to talk to you about also is that you brought it up earlier that, you know, the mayor's main job is to manage the staff. And so you mentioned there's a new city manager. But I want to know what else has been done in the last 4 years that you've been mayor that you felt you've improved the communication and processes and the actions of the staff of the city while you've been mayor.
So I don't think the mayor's main job is to manage the staff. I think because we have a professional city manager in our form of government, the mayor gets to appoint the city manager and the chief of police and the city attorney. So those three positions report to the mayor and council because the mayor and council get to pick those people. But the city manager gets to manage the day-to-day operations of the staff. But I do think it's important because how that staff is managed, that city manager is responsible to the mayor and council. Mm-hmm. So as far as a day-to-day basis, I mean, I believe that that's probably one of the most important things that have happened since I've been mayor is hiring a new city manager who's had experience in other cities, who's very adamant. Council leads, staff follows. He's very, direct about following policy direction given from the council. I can't take credit for it, but there have been a lot of things that have happened to improve our staff. One example is just the kind of coaching that happens with the city manager. We have had some employees who don't present as well in front of the public, but they're good at their job, they know what they're doing, but they don't present as well to the council. He's sent them off to go to Toastmasters. You need to get, he's had tons of leadership training, so we've had a lot of staff development over the years. There's been efficiencies, there's been job changes, we've combined this with that. I think all of those things, I think we have a happier staff that are more satisfied with their environment, and also they're getting a lot more development and becoming better employees.
Okay. The other thing you're very responsible for is Heber Light and Power. You are the chair of the Heber Light and Power Board. So one of my questions there is, can you explain to the citizens the nuclear power plant the investment that Heber Light and Power made, and did you vote for that originally to invest in that nuclear power plant in Idaho, I think it was, right? Yeah. Can you explain really quickly what that was? And
yeah. So when I was on city council, I was on the board for a short time, and then I was off the board until I became mayor. During that time when I was not on the board, they voted to be part of this small nuclear module power project that UAMPS had started and was getting all these cities involved. So when I came onto the board as mayor, we were already in that project, and then we had a couple of opportunities to have what they're calling off-ramps. So you get to this point where there's a decision to be made and you can say, okay, we're out. And as that off-ramp came up recently, we as a board decided to take the off-ramp and get out of the project. And it was primarily because I do think it might go forward in the future, but we're a small city and we did not want to take the risks that were involved. They were not certain enough about what the numbers were going to look like. There weren't other big investors coming in, and we came to a point where we said we just don't feel comfortable with it. So we did take the off-ramp and we're out of that project now.
And how much did that cost us? Totally.
I want to say $300,000. I'd have to double check though.
I was hearing about that as well.
That's about what
so $300,000 to kind of decide not to do it at this point. There were other towns that backed out of this too.
At the same
wasn't just us.
Right, correct.
But there were citizens that were very concerned about that investment to begin with before, Did you go from a city council person being on that Heber Light and Power Board as a city council person for Heber? Did you go directly to being the mayor and the chair, or was there a time where you were not on that board?
Well, when I was first elected to council, Mayor McDonald put Heidi and I on that board, and I think we were only on there for 6 months and he kicked us off. So then I was on the council for the rest of my term, and then I was elected mayor. So it would have been 3.5 years of being on the council, but not on the Heber Light and Power Board.
Okay. The other thing I want to ask about is, how many employees right now does Heber City have?
We have
Heber Light and Power, excuse me.
Heber Light and Power is 35, I believe.
35 employees. How many of those are administration over operation?
Oh.
Do you know,
Not off the top of my head.
is there like 5 administrators with an attorney or something?
I would guess 7 or 8 administration.
Okay. My question is, how much is this new office building costing? It's called a campus because it's not just a new office building. It is also how many acres? A couple acres or something of
it's that
storage.
Old
But how much is that building costing the ratepayers at this point?
Right now, the latest estimates were close to $9 million.
Okay.
But we're still pulling things down and looking at it.
So can you explain to the ratepayers of Heber Light and Power why this is a good investment for them? What improvements are they going to see from their service because of this investment?
I don't know that a ratepayer overnight would see a big difference. I think it does create, it's more centralized. Right now they're in a couple different buildings and they're spread out. And the notion is once we get everyone in the same place, they'll be more efficient. They'll waste less time running back and forth. Reliability will be better because we'll be able to have things centralized and they'll be able to communicate better and get people on the job when we have these outages. I don't know that from one day to the next anyone's going to go, oh wow, my power's so much better. But I do think if we don't do something ongoing, we will start to see more outages and they'll be less able to respond to those things.
Well, and if you just consider 35 employees, 9 million, that's like 250,000 an employee that is being invested in this facility for them. Most of those employees should be out in the field doing work, so they're not even going to be in that building. It's just it's a pretty expensive building for the amount of employees that are actually utilizing it.
And usually when you do these things, you get this. We did a needs assessment, so you have an architect go through and talk to all the employees and say what you need, and then we said no, that's too much, and bring it down. We're still in that process. I'm expecting it to land at a lower number, but you're right, that is a big number at this point.
Give us some ideas of what you've accomplished in the last 4 years that you're proud of, that you want to let people know.
Okay.
This would be a good time to do that.
All right, great. So, like I led with was planning. I think we have had this unprecedented amount of pressure on our community for growth. I think the census said our county grew by 47%. It's really not sustainable, and we continue to. Today I was in a meeting with legislators. I said, do not give financial incentives for companies to come from out of state, even if you're thinking it's rural development, because it's not sustainable. They come here, they either have to take employees from other people or bring employees. If we don't have enough housing, let the people who are already here develop their businesses naturally. If you want to support them, fine. But we have had an incredible amount of growth. But we did do a general plan. We were able to do a parks and cemetery plan. We've been able to work with, I feel like we've been able to collaborate more with other entities. I just came from a meeting with the school superintendent and the school board chair, trying to talk about how we can better collaborate. We've made some mistakes. When we annexed, we should have said, you need to give us this land for an elementary school, but we weren't communicating the way we needed to be, but I feel like we're improving those things. We've worked better with our Association of Governments. We've tried to work better with the county. I think those personal relationships are important because if we don't have trust, it's hard for us to work together. I've also worked on the state level, I've been a part of the League of Cities and Towns Board. I'm on the Envision Utah Board. I've been asked to be with a group of elected officials who are working really hard to protect our rights as a city. We have a legislature who are many developers and real estate agents, and often hear that there's problems and say, we're going to fix it with a one-size-fits-all. We're going to allow developers to have their own inspectors. That's not a good idea. We think the cities need to inspect so that there's some recourse for citizens who say, this is a problem with my house. What are they going to do? Go back to the builder who caused the problem? Right now, there's talk of changing the sales tax distribution, the 50-50, because the legislators believe that cities are not encouraging enough housing, but we're encouraging commercial. So they don't want to give us as much sales tax revenue for commercial. So the League of Cities and Towns picked out a handful of elected officials around the state to be a part of this group that's going to help strategize. I think that's very valuable. I think Heber's experience is different than any other city in the state. We're in the middle of this county. We have a lot of pressure because of the development going on around us. I wrote my master's thesis on unincorporated municipal services taxation. I believe that in our county, Heber City residents pay more taxes for the same services because we pay the same amount to the county as everyone else does, and then we have to pay for services in the city. I've been pushing for changes in that area. It's a very difficult, sticky political situation, but I've been able to have conversations at the state level. I'm talking to the county. We're trying to change even animal services. You know, we're all getting pretty much the same service, but we pay more in the city.
Well, and I brought this up in a local meeting just in the past few weeks of, I think we seriously should look at consolidating our sheriff's department and our Heber City Police Department. Because, I mean, if you're serious about making it fair for Heber City taxpayers, we're paying for Heber Police and Wasatch County Sheriff. And I'm not saying it'll be more economical. I don't know the answers, but I think we should study it.
It's worth a
We
look.
need to study it. Because you're talking about animal control, that's the sheriff and the Heber City Police, and it's, so that's my 2 cents on that. But let me get back to something that has happened in the last year or so. At the July 2020 City Council meeting, a City Council member was starting to make a motion to amend the annexation policy map to remove the resort corner. That was July of 2020. The council had discussed it, and it appeared to have a majority vote to remove that corner, and a council person started to make a motion to call for a vote, and you stopped that person from making that motion. Now, the bylaws don't give you authority to stop a city council person from making a motion, and I thought I just wanted to hear if you'd like to respond to that and why you stopped them from making the motion.
I can't remember.
Well, I watched the video again today.
Okay.
Just to...
What happened after that? Did someone else make a motion, or there was no motion?
No, there was no motion. Rachel Kaler was the person who made the motion, and she said everybody had spoken. Everybody weighed in, the city council, on how they felt about removing it from the map. And it was going to be, it was going to pass to remove it out of the map because of how everyone spoke. So she said, having said that, having heard all this, I make a motion. And you said, no, I don't want you to make that motion because I don't want my staff to have to deal with the process of removing it from the map. And then you said, and all you have to do, you don't even have to make a formal vote, you told the city council. You said all you got to do is tell the developer you don't want it, and it's done.
And then
so that's what everybody did. They went, we don't want this, who were going to vote to pull it off the map. They said, we don't want this. Well, all we've been dealing with the last year and 3 months is this same developer coming back on that corner, coming back to the city council over the last year, even the last time was like a month ago, wanting to negotiate something with that corner. So, first of all, I don't even, you know, I wanted you to have a chance to respond because quite honestly, I was in that meeting that night and I heard that, and it was a Zoom meeting, so I wasn't in there in person.
Was it on the agenda though, for that to be voted on?
Yes, because Rachel put it on the agenda, and she said that in the meeting. She goes, I put this on the agenda, so that's why I want to talk about this.
And it was voted on, maybe not that night, but ultimately it was voted on because it was sent back to Planning Commission, or it wouldn't have gone back to Planning
Right,
Commission. So
but it would
was
have
voted
been, that process would have started, and it doesn't matter how it ended up. The point is that you stopped a city council member from making a motion, which I don't believe the bylaws allow that. So my question to you is, why did you do that? Are you for that project on the corner of the resort corner? Do you want it to be developed? And why did you stop that initial motion to pull it from your map?
I don't recall exactly, but what I do know is I don't really have an opinion about, I know the other project, everybody was against that project. That project was never going to happen in the city or out of the city. But there have been new people come, you're right, and they've talked to council members, and then the council members voted differently after it went through that process. But what I didn't, at the beginning of the year, the council sets these priorities. They've got all these priorities. The staff is, we have staff that are swamped. And I was just saying, you don't have to do this, if I recall correctly, but it can still not happen if you just let us have a say at the table. And then ultimately they did, they made the motion, whatever meeting it was, and they took it out.
Okay. We have a few minutes left. I do want to talk about the bypass. UDOT just kind of came back to the county, I believe, and said, we're going to be coming up with the process by October of the last time people are going to respond. And then they're going to make some decisions here soon. Do you know any more than that? And is there any policy that the city feels at this point with that bypass? Because I know there's a ton of people that care about where that goes.
Yeah, so I haven't had another update. I did see that as well, and I know we have something coming up on the agenda. I don't know which day it is, but I know I have something coming up. And they're going through their process, and they're going to come back and say, here's our recommendation, and then it has to get funded. But you're right, there's a lot. I mean, nobody wants it anywhere, really. As wherever it goes, the people nearest don't like it. But when I was first on council, that was like the #1 issue. Everyone said, it's Main Street, we got to have a bypass. Now that it's coming closer and we have some traction, everyone's like, wait a minute, we wanted a bypass, but we don't want a bypass near us. And so the council has not taken any formal action. They haven't made any motion. There's not a majority that have said we want this or we want that. Okay. And so we're just in the middle of this process waiting to see what they come up with their data and input from the public.
Great. Well, I appreciate your time. Please tell the folks why they should vote for you and where they can contact you.
All right, I have a website. It's Potter for Mayor, FOR, not the number 4, all lowercase.com. And I have some things on there. You're welcome to email me. You're welcome to call me. I have, my email is Kelleen Potter with the number 7 at gmail.com. And I am asking for your vote. I believe that I have been an effective mayor for these 4 years. I believe that I have been able to be a good leader with the staff, with other members of the community and in the state. I have a trusted voice of building bridges. We have to work together with other people to get anything done, and I would appreciate your support.
Thanks so much, and we'll see you next time.